Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'm going to call to order the September 11th Select Board meeting at 5:30 p.m. We have no changes to the agenda. I'd like to begin the announcements with a moment of silence in remembrance of the tragedy on 9/11, and because we're on 9/11, so just a moment of silence, please. Okay, Libby, announcements?
This meeting is being video and audio recorded. We have an annual request from the Cape and Islands Suicide Prevention Coalition for September to be declared Suicide Prevention and Action Month, and I believe there is a proclamation to be read.
I'll do that. Okay. The National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation. Whereas with September recognized as Suicide Prevention and Action Month, the Cape and Islands Suicide Prevention Coalition invites our communities, mental health advocates, prevention organizations, survivors, and allies to join us in helping to destigmatize mental health through initiative taking action towards suicide prevention. We seek to raise awareness and visibility of suicide prevention resources in our communities and help connect individuals with appropriate support services such as 988. And whereas, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP, suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages 10 and 34, with more than 49,476 people dying by suicide annually in the United States. And whereas, with an average of 132 suicide deaths daily, and each one directly impacting 125 additional people, including friends, service members, family, social media connections, and neighbors, we know a sizable number of individuals have been impacted by suicide. Whereas Nantucket's suicide rate is over 1.5 times higher, standing at 20.9 per 100,000 versus the state of Massachusetts' suicide rate of 9.4 per 100,000, we recognize the need to create hope through action locally. Whereas our Cape and Islands Suicide Prevention Coalition works hard to spread the word about prevention, awareness, education, and action through training forums, and events in our region. Whereas the town of Nantucket commits to being an active prevention partner with the Cape and Islands Suicide Prevention Coalition and publicly places its full support behind those who work in the field of suicide prevention and research, mental health, community health, education, and law enforcement who deal with this daily. We encourage all residents to take time to understand mental health and suicide through education and recognize that we need to take care of our mental health while we take care of each other. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Nantucket Select Board, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in the town of Nantucket. And we also have the climate change awareness one. Should I go ahead and read that one as well?
Sure.
Okay. So September is also Climate Change Awareness Month for Nantucket. And here's the proclamation. Whereas the town of Nantucket recognizes that climate change and rising sea levels pose a significant and increasing threat to Nantucket as outlined in various state and federal scenarios. And whereas the Select Board formed the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee in part to assist with obtaining community feedback on climate change and sea level rise. And whereas in 2022, the Select Board endorsed the first Nantucket Coastal Resilience Plan. And whereas the town of Nantucket, through a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant, developed a resilient Nantucket toolkit for adapting historic resources for sea level rise. And whereas the Select Board adopted local sea level rise scenarios, NOAA's high scenario, and best available flood hazard data, Massachusetts Coastal Flood Risk Model. And whereas AC Climate Nantucket provides a platform for public-private partnership between the community, organizations, and the town of Nantucket on issues of resilience and sustainability. And whereas AC Climate Partner organizations are hosting a series of educational events in September of 2024 featuring climate change topics that may be found at www.acclimate.org/AC-events. And now jointly, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee and AC Climate call upon the Select Board to proclaim 2024 Climate Change Awareness Month for the town of Nantucket. We, the Select Board of the town of Nantucket in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby officially proclaim the month of September 2024 is Climate Change Awareness Month, and do hereby encourage all residents to learn more about the threats of climate change and sea level rise and the planning efforts underway to increase community resilience. Okay.
Thank you so much. We have a special town meeting coming up next Tuesday, September 17th. It starts at 5 p.m. at the high school in the auditorium, 10 Surfside Road. It was brought to our attention that some voters may still be without the town meeting warrant booklet that's mailed to all voters prior to town meeting. Although we have met our legal obligation by mailing the warrant in time to the printer and all, it gets to the post office and it's out of our control after that. So if there are still voters out there without warrants, they may want to contact the post office or view and print the warrant from the town's website or obtain a copy from the town admin office. We have plenty. We have next item is in accordance with the Select Board's committee appointment policy. We announce applications received for boards, committees, and commission in advance of the appointments being made. We have 2 applications for the Conservation Commission, Grant Sanders and RJ Turcott, appointments to be made on September 25th. That's it for announcements.
Any Select Board announcements or comments? Okay, seeing none. Follow-up comments from prior Select Board meetings. Libby's working on a number of them, but I wanted to give an update on Penny Dye's question and comment at our last meeting about the land bank, and just to let the community know that I have talked to the interim director of the land bank about moving forward with hybrid meetings and posting their minutes online, and she has assured me she's working on it and will be coordinating with the commission to try to move that effort forward. So now we are at public comment for items not on the agenda. Okay, anybody in the room? Mary Leprey's hand keeps going up and down if you wanna.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, I just had 2 questions. One is I am just wondering the status on the PFMLA article that was approved at town meeting back in May, because I had heard through the Island Grapevine that it needed some kind of a signature from the town manager, and I just would like to know, I think that a lot of municipal employees are probably really interested. It would be really nice if we had the same access to the same type of leave that people who work in the private sector have. And right now it appears we do not and will not come January 1st, which is sort of what was discussed at town meeting, is that we would. So I'm just not sure what the holdup is on that, and would love, I think I'm not alone. I would love if you could do that follow-up at a meeting. And I also, on your warrants, there's 2 payments for tree service, and it looks like one of them is an off-island company and one is an on-island company, and I would love to see, business for the town stay with on-island, but I also didn't know that we had to spend $200,000 with for tree trimming. I don't know how much tree trimming costs, but I just didn't understand why we needed 2 different contracts. That was it.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Campbell Sutton's up next.
Good evening, everyone. I assume you can hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to follow up on Libby's statement, because I was going to mention the the postal connection to, because I just got my warrant today, which means maybe people in my neighborhood did, but I know people in Sconset got over a week ago. So I was just going to say that it's a postal issue. Just because you get things out on time doesn't require the post office to, hurry them along. So when she mentioned the post office, I was just wondering if she had an address or to whom would we address our concerns. I have the same concern when the mailings go out from the planning board or the zoning board, et cetera, and people receive them the day before the meeting. And so I'd like to, if you have an idea of who to get in touch with at the post office, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question, Camel. Okay, not seeing any other hands raised. We'll move on. There is no new business. We have minutes, payroll warrants, treasury warrants, and pending contracts. The pleasure of the board.
I'd like to do the minutes and the warrants and then talk about a couple contracts.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
So do you want to
Move
make that
approval.
motion? Okay, so there's a motion for 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Okay, I was going to say by roll call, don't have to do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, Matt, questions?
Yeah, so on 4, the island home, I don't need the answer tonight, but at some point I want to look, and I talked to Libby and she said that we're going to be looking at it. But it seems like there's a lot of island home expenses and I want to make sure, how does that compare before we did an override? And is doing it this way sustainable? Sort of just a general question in the future when we talk about it. I'd also like to know, we don't need it again tonight, what is the total been on the Loran building? It's $2 million tonight, and we've had, that much at least one other time, maybe another. I think we should know as a general amount when they come in 2 or 3 times. I think we should know we paid this much per bed or whatever. So do you have that one, Libby, or no?
I have a 2-page report on the repairs and improvement status of the Loran building. It's actually 4 pages, and I'm happy to forward it around to the board.
Do you know, is the total there for what we spent so far?
Phase 1, which was completed in June 2021, cost $988,000, so you may have to do some math.
I'm doing it.
Phase 1A was $198,000. That was completed in February 2023, and all of these have a complete description of the work as well. Phase 2, completed in June 2024, $922,350. Phase 3, which is what's on the warrant tonight, project completion date estimated at June 2025, $2,274,700 as indicated on the pending contract sheet. So it's a costly project, as are most municipal building projects. It's an old building. It's got a lot of hazardous materials in it, and
Yeah, we're at 4.38 as we stand now. Okay.
Okay.
And the other 2 other comments, what is the Park and Rec side storage for 10 grand? What is that for and where?
side storage.
It said for Delta Fields, but I'm wondering, is it?
I assume that is for various types of equipment that's used there, but I can get definitive information and get it to you.
Because they've got a shed there for that stuff, and we just built another shed across the way for $2 million, $1.6 million, whatever it was. And then I was gonna make a comment about the tree trimming as well. I was wondering, I thought we had tree trimming in-house, and I don't remember seeing this. Maybe it's gone by me, but I think this seemed new.
Yep.
And that's all of my comments, questions.
Drew?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So as far as the tree trimming, Matt, you're absolutely right. We do have tree trimming capabilities in-house. We obviously have Dale the town arborist, and 1 tree truck, and then some laborers that help him. This is an on-call contract, so this kind of also answers Meredith Leprie's question. We award 2 contracts, so we have multiple options, and we only use this as needed. And this is really a provision that we have to address turpentine beetle and southern pine beetle infestations, and even some of the really, really big trees downtown, like the American elms, if they do get Dutch elm disease, if it's beyond our capabilities. So if it needs, labor or equipment that we don't have in-house, we have that option. But there are certainly years where we spend $0 on these on-call contracts.
Okay. That, Matt, is that good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, all right, terrific. Pleasure of the board on pending contracts?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay. Tom, you want to read the gift acceptances?
Sure. So we have 2 gift acceptances, recommendations for us for gifts to the following town agencies. The first one is to the fire department, a gift of $500 from Frank Holohan to be used for department training and equipment. The second is to the police department in the harbor master division, gift of various boat equipment and materials valued at up to $15,000 from the Egan Maritime Institute for harbor master vessel. The recommended motion is to accept the gifts for the designated purposes with thanks to the donors. I would entertain a motion. The chair, entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion too.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. And I just want to say for the public, the gift acceptance from Egan is a boat that was restored by the kids at the high school. And so it was a project, and there were some photos in the packet if people are curious about it. It was a really neat community project, and they wanted to move this along. So this was about the engine kit to make the boat operable for the department, for the police department. So it's kind of cool. All right. Next up is a request for select board review of the planning board major commercial development. Erica, are you going to lead us through this?
Sure. So at your June 5th meeting, you heard this request, and it's not a request for approval. It was just to kind of get your feedback on the idea of a pull-off at 6 and 8 North Beach Street. At the end of the meeting, you did move to get feedback from the Traffic Safety Work Group as well as the Nantucket Historical Commission. Both of those groups were favorable towards this pull-off. So if you are so inclined, staff can work with the attorney for the applicant and come back with an easement for acceptance.
And just to add, the HDC had reviewed this as part of the original approval for the project. So we had asked for
Yeah.
them to weigh in, so.
It was
they
part
had
of their
already weighed in.
hardscaping application, and that was approved.
Yep. So do we need a motion, Erica, or just consensus of the board to move forward to bring us something to vote on? What do you think procedurally?
I would kind of defer to Libby, but I think you can just consensus.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board, or just a general assent to move this forward?
Yeah, I'd like assent to move it. It's, in the future, it'd be great to get this input and other input prior to agreeing to it. I think that would be more helpful. I would be a little more hesitant myself if this were, sort of taking a spot away elsewhere, or if it were more in the center of town. I think, I think it would be, just like I complain every time we take a yard away and I talk about parking yards, I think we have to be careful not to start turning all the sidewalks, which are historic and a certain pattern. think we have to be careful. I'm fine with it here because it's sort of just outside of the core and going to the jetties, but I think, in the future, I hope that when we review it, that's taken into consideration.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Right, thank you. Anybody else?
It just seems like a lot of time spent for something minor, that's all.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
I'll be quicker next time on my comment.
I'm not sure that's what he meant, but
All right.
yeah, I did not interpret it that way. Okay, up next, town manager's report. Libby, you want to introduce?
Sure. So as the board knows, we've been moving through the departments to give monthly departmental reports, and tonight we have Human Resources. We have our HR Director, Amanda Perry, and I see our Assistant Director, Theodore Stockett, as well. I think Amanda's going to take us through a presentation.
Yes, thank you. Amanda Perry, HR Director, and I have with me tonight my Assistant Director, Theodora Stockett. And I'll take you through a few slides. Some of the information is similar to what we presented with the strategic plan back in August. Go ahead, you can turn to the next slide. So I'll go through our agenda, meet our team, our organizational structure, our mission and goals, some key projects that we're working on in HR, and then a review of our internal services, and then any questions. So our HR department, we have four full-time staff in HR, and they're broken down on this slide into the various expertise and responsibilities. There's a lot of overlap in the work that we do, and while we each have our own areas, we're all cross-trained in the various functions of human resources. This past summer, we were blessed to have with us a very talented intern who helped us collect market data related to the compensation and classification study, as well as refine our job posting formatting and recruitment communications. This next slide is our organizational chart. So as the HR director, I report to the town manager, but I also work closely with both assistant town managers. Over the years, our mission in human resources has remained relatively the same. We strive to empower employees in the workplace and focus on innovations in recruitment and hiring, ensuring that we offer a competitive benefits package, maintain union relations, and offer continuous professional development and opportunities for our employees to grow. With respect to our goals, we align our objectives with the strategic plan and keep up to date with any changes in state or federal laws that may impact our workforce. I like to describe our office as general support for all stages of the employment life cycle. So from the day you're hired until the day you retire, we're there to support our employees. Key projects, recruitment and retention. So we have invested in technology software for recruitment, and you'll learn more about that software from Theodora in a couple moments. But because of the software, we're able to report more data on our recruitment efforts from fiscal year 24. So in that fiscal year, we had about just over 800 applications received. This is not just individual applicants. There are situations where one applicant will apply for multiple jobs, so that is the total applications we received. Of those applications, we helped 67 people receive new jobs, either that's internal promotions or new employees joining the town. So to put that in perspective, we tracked 391 funded positions across the town. That's including the airport and water company. So 67% represents like 17% turnover rate. The average salary for those 67 positions was $82,844. So in those 67 positions, there were 12 positions we identified as key positions that were filled. Key position is one that is critical based on the strategic plan goals, has a safety-sensitive function within the town, and or the position leads a division or department within the town. So of the positions listed above, 4 of these hires were placed in housing sourced through the town at time of hire, and housing was critical to their acceptance of the position. 5 of these hires who filled the positions already worked for the town, so it was a promotion. And 7 of these hires were external candidates and just started their career with the town. This is a breakdown of the turnover by department. And I'll just mention that Stormwater and DEI, they only have 1 position, so that's why it says 100%. But I wanted to give you a perspective of what it looks like across all the departments. So you can see on this table that the departments with relatively high turnover are DPW, housing, sewer, and the town clerk comes up as well, but just note that that's a very small department as well, so they only had 1 position turnover. In this past year, our internal policy team was assigned to work on the hybrid work and commuting policy, and we dedicated considerable time to the development of this policy. It's actually very complicated to define employee terms such as hybrid, commuter, or remote worker, and so we have various degrees of work accommodations of this nature across the town. For example, a commuter is someone who we defined as traveling to Nantucket to work at least 3 days per week. A hybrid worker is someone who is not required to work in the town office, but has infrequent or no travel to Nantucket on a regular basis. So overall, I could identify 18 employees who have an approved and very consistent commuting or hybrid work schedule across the town. This policy is important not only to lay out expectations for our employees, but also as a tool to help managers navigate this new work environment. We also hope that by making these type of work accommodations, we have a positive impact on our recruitment efforts. This past summer, we hired approximately 163 seasonal employees, and I wanted to highlight that we had 2 departments, the Culture and Tourism Office as well as Natural Resources, that had about an 80% of their seasonal staff returning. Next was the Marine Department that had like 60 to 66% returning staff for their assistant harbor masters and dock staff. Returning seasonal staff are a very valuable asset for the town. They have a lot of training and knowledge that they're bringing back when they come back to work for the town, and we hope that someday they'll consider full-time employment with the town of Nantucket. Annually, we participate in the Nantucket High School Job Fair, and this year we had 5 tables representing police, fire, sewer, island home, culture, and tourism. Most of the opportunities we can offer high school students are seasonal in nature, but we hope that by sharing information about what the town does for the community, we inspire them to consider future careers in public service. Another way that we are building collaboration locally is partnering with the Boys and Girls Club. So through this partnership, students attend field trips to town office locations. There's a presentation, a tour of the department, and there's a focus on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And these are some pictures of the recent field trips. Another key project in human resources is labor relations. This is an essential function of the HR office, and there are 7 bargaining units that we manage contract negotiations for, and 6 of those contracts expired June 30th, 2023. The typical duration of these contracts is 3 years, so every 3 years we prepare for collective bargaining. The bargaining process takes a considerable amount of time and dedication, and for this last round, we started in July 2022 and finally concluded in December 2023, with only 1 contract going beyond the expiration date of their contract.
Can I make a comment on that? I want to thank you. The changes from, 15, 20 years ago till now, and I know you still are making more, but the steps that you have made are very impressive, and things that we were asking for then, like total cost of contract, et cetera, are now given to us regularly, and it's professional and it's a huge improvement, so thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say that while contract negotiations is a cyclical function of HR, labor relations is really exercised daily in our office, and we have conversations throughout the year regarding contract interpretations, and this helps guide the conversation when we get to the bargaining table with the unions. So next, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Director, Theodora Stockett.
Thank you, Amanda. Good evening. Theodora Stockett, HR Assistant Director. Is it better? Okay. I'd like to take a moment to walk you through key professional development projects completed as of January of this year. We started the year with 2 interactive sessions on burnout, explore, refresh, engage. Employees had the opportunity to explore what burnout is, how it's affecting all of us, how to acknowledge and manage feelings, and set priorities and boundaries. A total of 39 employees attended the program. In February, we had a mandatory ethics training for all staff, followed by Munis training conducted by our IT department in March. In May, town leaders had a 2-day supervisory leadership development training with Jean Hurtau. The training covered management basics, labor and management law basics, provided an overview of discrimination and harassment practiced, addressing misconduct, disciplinary and performance issues, as well as conflict and de-escalation, and how to conduct effective meetings. We received great feedback from all attendees. In July, the focus was building evacuation and active attacker training with Officer Cassie Thompson. 3 sessions, roughly 43 people attended. We look forward to providing more training opportunities to staff in the coming months. And I want to highlight that this was not done without the help of the town leadership and morale group. Thank you for making this happen. Next slide, please. As of May 1st, we launched a new NeoGov module, NeoGov eForms. For those of you who are not familiar with this software, NeoGov eForms is an employee document management solution. It will allow our department to create online forms, manage documents securely online, and build workflows for documents that require multiple signatures. This module also has employee self-service and can allow employees to also initiate forms such as leave requests. The implementation of eForms aligned well with our 2024 open enrollment, which was in May. So open enrollment was the first process that we built in eForms. eLearn is another module that we purchased this year. Learn is a learning management system that would assist with keeping employees informed of training requirements and due dates with automated notifications and reminders to increase engagement and improve completion rates. With this module, we can assign coursework, enable training to be completed from anywhere. For example, it will be very helpful for our remote workers, and set up reminders for licenses and certificates that expire, as an example. We are currently building customized courses unique for town employees. We would start with the new hire and supervisor starter pack, and employees will also have access to a pre-built growing library of 1,500 plus courses designed for the public sector. We can group courses into learning plans for new supervisor training. The intent is to simplify the training process and reduce barriers to learning. We're excited to introduce this product to employees, and we will have a user guide and educational videos. And we intend to share those with supervisors and managers first, in effort to help educate them on how to successfully navigate through the platform, and then we can roll out to all staff. Next slide, please. Each year during the month of May, eligible employees can apply for or re-enroll in benefits offered by the town of Nantucket for changes effective July 1st. This year, eligible employees were able to make changes to their benefit plans by using NeoGov eForms. We created a user guide to help employees navigate through the platform. Employees had the opportunity to meet with participating insurance carriers in person during the month of May. We had representatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Altus, Tusk, Allstate, and Colonial Life, who did an overview of the life insurance plan options, cancer, accident, and disability plan options. We also had representatives from Nationwide and Great West, who talked about 457B deferred compensation retirement plan options as additional ways to save towards retirement. Each of these representatives was on Nantucket for a full day, and HR facilitated a tour across departments and group locations, a total of 6 meetings a day per carrier. Employees had the opportunity to learn about their plan options in more detail, ask questions, and enroll in benefits. We found it to be a great turnaround. A total of 63 employees have completed the open enrollment eForm process online. A total of 168 enrollments were processed for the next plan year. The highest enrollment rate was with our FSA, healthcare and dependent care plans through Tusk, We had 93 enrollments processed for the plan year, 2024-2025. Next slide, please. Retirement. Yep. Retirement is a huge step and often involves irrevocable decisions, so we make sure that employees have the information and the resources they need to successfully retire by doing one-on-one meetings with each departing employee who plans to retire. Once an employee notifies us of their official retirement, we meet and provide guidance on next steps of the process into retirement. There is a paperwork involved, and each case is unique, so we tailor our meetings to the needs of the employees and their unique situation. Once a year, we invite a representative from Barnstable County Retirement Association for in-person consultation and education. We visit departments and have group meetings as well as one-on-one meetings. Our next session is scheduled for September 25th. We're also exploring the idea of bringing someone from Medicare or Social Security because Medicare is a big piece of this process. Once a year, representatives from nationwide also visit departments and offer in-person education sessions to help employees understand the 457B retirement plans. Our website is also very helpful. We have created guides over the years and retirement checklists to help make the transition for our employees into retirement as seamless as possible. As of January of this year, we had 8 retirements, 7 retirees under age 65, a total of 22 retirees in fiscal year 2024, including the schools. The range in years of service of employees retired in fiscal year 2024 is 10 to 32 years, where 10 is the minimum. Employees cannot retire with service less than 10 years. The town has a service agreement with FutureComp, our third-party administrator, to assist with workers' compensation claims reporting, medical case management, and litigation management. Our department manages the administration of claims and has the responsibility to keep records of all reportable injuries and illnesses that occur in the workplace. We maintain a log of work-related injuries and illnesses where we record specific details about what happened and how it happened. We keep separate records for each department for each calendar year. We are mandated to complete separate OSHA survey for selected departments every other year. Human resources and town leaders representing different departments are committed to the idea of having a functioning safety committee. A group of leaders representing sewer, DPW, airport, water, health and human services, harbor masters, recently police and fire, met in March to discuss the future of such committee. Daniel McCarthy from FutureComp was present during the first meeting and had a presentation on how to manage a safety committee. The group agreed to meet every other month, and in May, the group gathered together to determine the structure of the committee. Jericho Mele was appointed as a chairperson, and the group also established a mission statement, which is presented on the screen for your review. The safety committee was renamed to Safety and Wellness Advisory Group. In front of you, you can see the long and short-term goals. Maybe I didn't include that. And there are 2 more meetings scheduled before end of the year. So it's work ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? It's great. Lot of work going on in your department. Thanks to you both for an excellent presentation. Jeff? Jeff's going to do Natural Resources Department.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So Jeff Carlson, Natural Resources Director for the Natural Resources Department. I apologize for a few text-heavy slides. They're more for public involvement here. But the real summary here is we in Natural Resources, we talk about it a lot internally, and kind of the explanation we all give is our job is to make sure that the outside stays nice. And how do we do that? We do that by education and management and research. and working with the community and our collaborators to try to ensure that that's the case. Right, Erica? So we have pretty diverse programming, and we'll get into that a little bit. Some of our main goals this year, obviously, we have some new programs that have come on board with sustainability. With that, we've required some kind of enhanced departmental operation, better project planning from our end, and how we all overlap. And we've also been trying to kind of keep up with a really dynamic regulatory environment around things like resiliency and climate change and sea level rise, and to stay up to date. So we've been really focused on that. Right, Erica? So this is going to be really small because we have a lot of people. So we have 3 basic divisions, and we'll go into each one. We have 11 full-time employees, obviously myself, and then the one we won't get into is our kind of our rock, Lisa Graves, our office manager. I actually really appreciate that I get to go after Amanda tonight because she mentioned our interns and the 80% retention that we have. That number is not right. That number is 100% retention because those people that are no longer interns are now full-time staff. So we've done a really good job trying to build that program to keeping interns. So her numbers really are right. I just like to say it that way, that it's not. But we focused really hard on developing from within and keeping people and keeping that continuity. And when we have folks that move to new jobs, like Vince, Leah stepped in for Vince, Griffin stepped in for Leah. When we had someone who left, one of our interns, Morgan, replaced our other Morgan, and we've kept everyone kind of there and going. And some of our other interns we've had, I feel like Dave Berry's been with us the better part of a decade now as a seasonal intern. But they provide us great continuity and flexibility to really do some great things. So I apologize for that being small. All right, Erica? So we have 3 divisions. Like we said, this was a reorg that we started kind of during COVID, and we're really kind of wrapped up at this point. This was to try to help wield the kind of an unwieldy beast. The first division that we have, in no particular order, is our Division of Climate and Resiliency. This is led by Vince Murphy, our Sustainability Programs Manager, and he's assisted by Leah Hill and Morgan Nelson. I know Leah is a regular attendee here and presenter, so I don't need to go over her job. But this is the group that's really our newest. They're really focused on bringing sustainability into town operations and then also operationalizing the Coastal Resiliency Plan. Morgan, our Coastal Resources Tech, is kind of our boots on the ground. She does all of our protected species work. She does the bulk of our erosion monitoring, and she's out a lot on the beach. She's got one of those really awful jobs where she spends most of her time outside on the beach. So they're a great team. We have a lot of significant planning efforts going on through them right now, things like environmental justice planning, sustainability principles, and obviously the Coastal Resiliency Plan are some of their bigger items. All right, next one. All right, so if the first group was kind of our planning group and kind of our larger scale group, our Division of Shellfish and Aquatic Resources, they're our really hardcore data collection group, and they're the ones that really fuel the information we need for the rest of our operation. They're led by Tara Riley. She also runs the Shellfish Hatchery down at Brand Point. That's kind of the centerpiece of their program, but they're also with Emma, who's our water quality specialist, hatchery technician Joe. If people haven't checked him out on Instagram, he loves to do educational stuff. It's fun to listen to. We try to keep it brief. And then obviously our former intern, Griffin, is our assistant biologist. They're really focused on things like our larval release program, where we put out bay scallops that we raise in the hatchery, supplement those. We've included this year some hardshell clams, blood arcs, which are those, they kind of look like a cross between a scallop and a clam when you pick them up on the beach, and they're kind of black, but they're a native shellfish to here. We started into those this year to kind of supplement and create a little bit more diversity, and they're really starting to dig their heels into eelgrass management, in addition to the regular water quality work that we do and harmful algal blooms and some of those things that are there. But they're really our group that collects, where we're transitioning from strict data collection for numbers into also kind of habitat metrics and things that people can relate to and people can see, and as they change and improve, we can see those habitats improve. Right, Erica? Last but not least, probably our least popular group, the regulatory guys. Their head is Will DeLerba, our conservation agent, who has kind of taken my place with the Conservation Commission. And then J.C. Johnson, our natural resources enforcement officer, and Morgan helps him out too. They're the guys that are also out. They're doing our field inspections. They're doing our regulatory compliance. We're really trying to push them into more of a educational role as well. We have a lot of programs that I appreciate are in need of some boosting and some other work that's there, whether it's fertilizer or illicit discharge or even the shellfish regulations. Those guys are really trying to pick their game up and go while still kind of completing the regular inspection tasks and working with applicants or fishermen and best practices. And those guys really put some good effort in. Right,
So that's I was gonna ask,
Yep.
that's the fertilizer arm.
Fertilizer is within there, right? That's a program that we share with health. Those are regulations that are operationalized by the Board of Health. But that's something that's there, and I know that's a long and battled program, full admittance, but that's something that I think I've spoken with both the interim health director, John Haddon, and then obviously with Rocky now about trying to pick that up, and we have some funding in this year's budget to try to bring in some help to up those requirements for education, possibly develop that test that's required by the regulations that's never been put together, and try to bring that around as well as providing some additional on-the-ground enforcement for folks. All right. So this was our budget for the last few years. I kind of chose this one because it's fairly consistent. Obviously for us, the bulk of our expenses relate around payroll expenses, and our operating total really is anywhere from about, on average, in the last couple of years, about $185,000 to $200,000 outside of our capital projects that we have. And some of our larger capital projects include things like the Nantucket Harbor watershed and groundwater study, sediment transport and dredge plan, harbor plan update, just to name a few. So we try to do the best we can with what we got. I think we do a pretty good job and try to spend that money effectively and do as good as we can. And I think it is what it is. It's our budget. So next one, Erica. Sorry, just to kind of run through what we went through last year for budgets and increases. Obviously, we have our education and compliance specialists that we just kind of referenced. That's really going to be focused more towards fertilizer programming. And then our capital request that we did last year. The first one I think is the most important, and it's been questioned the most, is we're really trying to develop an environmental justice assessment and policy. We've been working on some of our larger projects, things like the Mayacamet Pond dredging project and things that take place in our environmental justice communities. And the Commonwealth is really pushing to engage those communities without really providing resources or help. And they're asking for a lot of information and a lot of outreach and development. And it's just something that we haven't really put a lot of energy and effort towards to this point. And I think that's something that this will really help to do. Just as an example, we had to provide an analysis in that Mayacamet Pond dredging program on how this project will affect the environmental justice community there that's been mapped to have increased rates of asthma in newborns within that geographic area, and how the dredging project may impact that. It's not stuff we have a lot of information on. We're trying to gather that, kind of go through the state information that they provide and provide kind of a consistent approach, and then also really focus on bringing groups together that are in those communities to meaningfully participate and help us with project design, project implementation, and try to get a really broad cross-section of the community involved. The next one is kind of near and dear to what we said earlier. It's our baseline data program. That covers everything from our annual eelgrass and bay scallop surveys to water quality, to a number of things. That's where we get all of the information that fuels our program. And then the last one is the continued implementation of the Coastal Resiliency Plan, which I think we've had some great successes in for the last couple of years, and really keeping that plan active and alive and well, and working on a lot of projects that we'll talk about, I think, on the next slide. So this is just kind of a list of our really kind of major active projects. We unfortunately and fortunately have more than this, but this is kind of our big highlight ones. Won't run through the whole list because I know a lot of these come to you guys for updates, but really in the next calendar year, we're looking at having a updated harbor plan, which we update every 10 years in front of you guys for adoption. Will be completed with 30% design of the downtown neighborhood flood barrier. Will be completed in the next fiscal year with the harbor watershed and groundwater study. We're in the field data collection phase for that. We're have capital requests for the Sac-Japon Living Shoreline. That design and permitting will be done. And then kind of the next big project for us that's on the list is the Mayakama Pond Dredging Project. We're just about complete with permitting. We're hoping to have all permits in hand for that by about the end of October. And then we'll hopefully be able to get started on that. We're really excited about that. That's a project that the community committed to a couple years ago at town meeting with a pretty significant funding. We've also been able to go out and get another $1 million in funding for that project through some state grants. And we're really excited to see that's been kind of a big ticket item for the water quality plan and a chance to really do some significant work on a pond that's been significantly impaired for a long, long time. But also kind of a demonstration that we can do great things when we put our minds to it. So a lot of those are going on. I'm happy to set up times to talk to anybody about any of those. I could talk about them for the next 2 hours, but I don't think anyone would like that to happen. So, all right, next one. So again, like we said, some recent achievements that are there. That top picture on the upper right, those are our two fancy robots. Those are our two bioreactors, our phytoplankton bioreactors at the hatchery. They're really cool. We've been able to use those machines to essentially replace a seasonal intern. They're robots that grow algae that feed our shellfish in our hatchery, and they're really cool. They're self-contained, they self-clean. They've been a huge time saver. We were able to obtain those through some grants and gifts, primarily from the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation. But it's that kind of innovation that I think they really push for at the hatchery that I think really allows them to grow that program and expand. We rescued 14 million bay scallop seed from strandings in the last winter. It is a little higher than normal, but again, it was good effort. We had great community turnout for those. You can kind of see that's a lower picture there with Griff and Joe. That's just a small percentage of what was there. We've completed all of our normal annual reportings and surveys. We recently finished the update of the wetland protection regulations. We've instituted a departmental project management system where we require, before projects are even brought to you guys, some level of chartering system in there where we review it internally, make sure we have the resources and manpower to handle them effectively and timely, and make sure that we understand everything that's involved from permitting to funding to potential grants and opportunities. But it's really helped us stay organized and stay focused on achieving the goals in all of our plans and other objectives. And another program that we're really kind of proud of, and again, if you check out on social media, especially during the summer, Emma has really done a great job putting together a weekly update on harmful algal blooms in our ponds and our harbors. And that's a program that we partnered with the Land Bank, the Conservation Foundation, the Nantucket Land and Water Council, Mass Audubon, anyone that has water bodies that people use to recreate, even if it's just they might walk by with their pets, where we now take water samples on a weekly basis, even if we're not seeing symptoms, and using our flow cam that's at the hatchery, we can run those samples, identify all of the algae and numbers within those samples, and really determine and quantify if there are species of concern, what level of concern, to get that information to people. We've upgraded our signage this year, so hopefully when people see the green, yellow, or red signs, it's clear that, hey, it's yellow, I shouldn't let my pet in, or I shouldn't be swimming, but if I wanted to go kayak, as long as I'm not drinking the water, I'll be fine, or I can go sail on the pond. But really trying to do that and keep people safe and on our water bodies as best we can. That's a program that didn't exist within the town 3 years ago. So that's something where we've really gone from visual identification to visual identification and requesting state assistance to we're able to do it all on island with staff and collaborators, and put out weekly updates for people to be on those ponds. If one does have a hit, those are tested again kind of on a daily basis until we see those cell counts go down. So we really think that's been a great program for people to use our water bodies. All right, last one. This is a slide that I know is in the template deck, but it's something that it's always nice to touch on a little bit. Is really what we're seeing is our environment and natural resources is changing really quickly. There are grant opportunities that come seemingly on the daily basis. There are rules changing all the time. There are new tests and elements of concern that come up, everything from, microplastics to chemical contaminants. That it's a really dynamic environment, and just staying on top of that can be tricky. Costs go up over time. I think you probably hear that from everyone, but really our biggest challenge is how we take that information and get it to the residents that are here and get it in a way that people can understand and keep it simple. Florencia and the communications office has been a huge help to us to do that. But we really, if people aren't getting information, we would love to hear if there's things that people are finding really useful. Those are also helpful because we can kind of continue that out. And that leads us to one of our opportunities that are there. We've recently just had 2 separate kind of large-scale project open houses. We did one at the Whaling Museum where we had both the downtown neighborhood flood barrier and then the Washington Street project that's with the land bank. Had a forum at the Whaling Museum. It was kind of an open house style where you could walk through, you could stay for 5 minutes, for 45 minutes. Wasn't a formal presentation. For the first time ever, at least from our end, we had active translation services available if people needed those. And in one day, between a morning and evening session, depending on whose count you use, the clicker or the sign-in sheets, we had about 100 to 120 people go through and actively engage in both those projects. Kind of to follow up on that, we just recently did one last week for the sediment transport and dredge plan. And I've really found some great success from those. And I think that's something that we're looking at departmentally trying to do, even if it's something that's more monthly or bi-monthly, just here we are, we have our experts here. If you have questions, come and invite. We'll move around, we'll do different times, but that way people can come in and get basic information about projects or where they can get more, and just see how we can have that kind of interaction with the public for what's there, and hopefully with those kind of grow some collaborations that are there. I know the land bank is really interested in participating. And obviously we've seen a big uptick as well in groups like the Conservation Foundation, who have had their climate summit recently, and they're having their meeting about their CO2 project, I believe, this evening, to capitalize together, where we all have these like-minded individuals kind of focused and working together to get information to people, but also having those projects being, kind of fostered along together, so we're not working in opposition, that we're working together. I know that sounds super cheesy sometimes, but it's really been great that these things have kind of come to be in the last 3 or 4 years. I think that's it. There may be one more. Just our contact info that's there. Obviously, we really push hard to keep social media stuff. I know not everyone's social media users, but we try to get information up every day about things that are going on. So if you don't see it on the first day, keep checking in. We try to really keep stuff fresh and new, and connecting people to information. And then our last kind of call to action for everybody is, let's try to keep the outside nice. Let's all work together. Happy to take any questions.
I have a question, Madam Chair. You said it yourself, things change, regulations change. You have a responsibility for a lot of science that changes. How do you keep your staff and yourself up to date? I noticed like your travel budget was hardly anything, like going to conferences or getting educated. How do you do that?
So we do go to a lot of conferences. We kind of pick and choose. Really, for us, we found, especially in our field, there's been a lot of great opportunity, especially post-COVID, for remote and digital participation. We also, and I think I'm very proud to say this, a lot of the work that we're doing is on the front end of what's happening. Things like the Coastal Resiliency Plan. Our shellfish hatchery is the only real municipal hatchery in the Commonwealth. Our staff there, in a number of cases, have been invited to go and present and participate.
That's great.
And that's been a great boost to us to not have to, in some cases, they're brought to those events and come forward. Other than that, we try to be pick and choosy to go through for where we go. A lot of things like Shellfish, National Shellfish Conference was most recently in the Northeast. Some of our travel, we go to Milford, has a big conference in Connecticut every year. But we pool up and go and carpool and share and really try to get the best bang for our buck for what's there. But we definitely try to really push to get to, professional events and network and work with folks. We do a lot of work with the Martha's Vineyard Shellfish Group for our shellfish program. Vince and Coastal Resiliency has done a lot of work with P-Town. Arcadis's relationship with the town has opened a lot of doors. We've presented the Coastal Resiliency Plan with them a few times as well in various conferences, but we definitely try to keep up with the Joneses as much as we can that way.
Thank you.
I just want to give a shout out to you and your staff for your support in the Vineyard Wind environmental assessment framework development process, and Jeff and some of his team. And I've said this before, but your point about we're ahead of the curve, state folks were surprised that we're doing sampling on certain things, microplastics work, et cetera, that they're curious about what we're doing because they want to learn from us at the state level. So it's really impressive, and the expertise that you have for municipalities is really great. So thank you.
No, it's been great, and thank you guys for all of the support. Again, this is a department that in 2011 was Tara Riley and I, and you can see what we've grown to in a pretty short amount of time. And I think that, environmental leadership is something that I know is a select board goal, but I think it's something that has been reflected by the community over time and supporting our efforts and doing those things. So again, it's a real community effort.
Thanks, Jeff.
Budget. So the section 4.2 D3 of the town charter places a responsibility for development of the annual town budget with the town manager. And we get lots of input, of course, from the departments. It's very much coordinated. So we have begun that process, and this preliminary review with you all of budget projections for the upcoming fiscal year, fiscal 2026, is put together by the finance director, myself, the assistant town managers, and our assistant finance director. And Brian's going to take us through most of it, and I'll pick up a little bit at the end.
Thank you, Libby. Brian Turbott, Finance Director. As Libby mentioned, we have started the fiscal 2026 budget, as I'll do probably at least 2 or 3 times through this presentation. Please don't get married to any of the numbers in this. It's very fluid in the beginning of this early in September, but I think it's really meaningful to kind of show you where we think we're headed and some of the challenges we may be facing leading up to the presentation in December. So we usually like to just kind of run through really quickly. As everybody knows, we're limited by Proposition 2.5, which was a voter initiative that went into effect in 1982. Proposition 2.5 limits the amount of revenue that we can raise in real and personal property taxes on an annual basis. In 1982, the DOR started with a calculation, and then every year since then, it's grown, and we've added the 2.5% plus debt exclusions, which we'll take you through. So next slide, please, Erica. So as I mentioned, how can we increase the levy limit? Allowable 2.5%, new growth, any permanent overrides, which, as you all know, we have done a few in the town for the Island Home, for solid waste, for affordable housing, and temporary exclusions, which we typically use debt exclusions, which is added to the tax rate or the revenue collected only for the length of the borrowing, and capital exclusions, which we've been using primarily for capital rolling stock, and that's a 1-year increase on an annual basis as part of the capital plan. Next slide, please. So fiscal 26, we're projecting, I actually have to go to my sheet, I'm sorry.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Just for, because this always comes up, is people come to us and say, well, how did my taxes go up more than 2.5%?
Right.
And it can go up more than 2.5% if the assessment in your neighborhood increases.
Correct.
If the assessment in your neighborhood doubles, your taxes won't quite double, but they'll almost double.
Right, and that's why we always try to point out that Proposition 2.5 only refers to the amount of revenue that we can increase on an annual basis. It doesn't limit the increase in your tax bill, because that is based on the assessed value and how much we're raising on an annual basis.
I think, and I just think it's important to say that because people come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they can realize if you get gentrified, your neighborhood gets gentrified, we're going to see higher taxes.
Correct.
That's how it works.
So fiscal 26, we're starting with a projected levy limit, which is based off what we project fiscal 25 will be of $111,368,000. I would note that fiscal 25, we're still in the middle of working with DOR, still analyzing new growth. So this allowable levy limit within the levy limit, not including any debt exclusions or capital exclusions, is likely to change, which is one of the reasons why I say don't get really caught up in the numbers, because they are very likely to change. And the assessor's working really hard with DOR to get as much new growth. So we are projecting $2.6 million for this year. For next year in fiscal 26, we're projecting at this point $1.25 million, the 2.5% for. We're projecting 2.5% increase of 2.6 this year, 1.25 million in new growth. For next year, 2.785 for 2.5% increase, and then 1,250,000 for new growth. Likely those will change. Again, it's very early in the process, and that does depend on the building that's going on the island and what we can capture. So those are a couple areas that will change, most likely through this process. Debt exclusions for any previously permanently borrowed authorized debt, $11.6 million in fiscal 26, and we're projecting around an $850,000 capital exclusion at this point as we go through the process. Next slide, Erica. Fifth, local estimated receipts, which is everything from motor vehicle excise, rooms tax, meals tax, building permits. Generally, we pretty much level fund all of this as we start this process during the year. In a couple weeks, September 30th is the first quarter. One of the biggest is rooms tax. We'll get that on September 30th. It'll give us a really good idea of where that may be headed. We have consistently the last couple of years generated about $13.2 to $13.5 million in rooms tax. I think we're probably at the amount or the limit, unless there's some type of substantial change in the structure or what is calculated or something of that nature. I think that we're getting close to the number that we can probably reasonably expect on an annual basis at this point. Meals tax is another one. We're expecting probably right around $1 million. The biggest change that we made in local estimated receipts, last year when we were before you, we projected $750,000 in investment income. We actually generated almost $5.1 million in the general fund in fiscal 24. So 25, we actually are projecting substantially more than the original 750 due to the good work of our treasurer, which I think I've commended her a few times when we presented to the board. And the way that she structured and layered some of the investments, we actually feel comfortable in projecting about $3.7 million in 26, even though rates are starting to change and some investments are starting to return a little bit lower. We've structured and layered and worked with our investment advisors to generate long-term larger gains right now. So we're comfortable at the $3.7 million for fiscal 26. Sorry.
How long will they let you lock it in if you're layering it? What's the max they'll let you lock in?
We're locking in some of it between 6 and 9 months, but they're doing it practically every day. We have things coming due because of the size of the investments and with our reserves that we're investing. So we see the ability to still generate probably 7 to 8% for a little while longer. So we are at this point comfortable, but if something changes dramatically, that would be something we would address as we move forward. Next slide, please, Erica. So all told, real and personal property taxes, $127.9 million, approximately $400,000 estimated for allowance for abatements and exemptions. $26.7 million in the local estimated receipts. And then we are projecting state aid at $5 million, which is what we received, will receive in fiscal '25. Again, we're actually so far ahead of where the Commonwealth is in planning the budget. They won't have their revenue projection meeting until December, actually after we have our budget presentation. So we're conservatively projecting that we will continue to receive the same amount as we did this year. This really just kind of shows you from fiscal '20 to '24 what the growth rate in revenue has been. In some categories, it's fairly substantial. Investment income, obviously one of them. Rooms tax, we've also seen a substantial increase in change. So, next slide, please, Erica. Very preliminary.
Motor vehicles too.
Yes.
There's a lot of new cars.
Or people are buying new cars, and that's changing the valuation in the bills too. But yes, there's certainly, I think last year we sent out 22,000 bills, which is quite a few more than when I started 10 years ago here. So there are
It's been
more garaged here than
180 homes the last 3 years was the average.
So we are projecting for preliminary expenses, $68.6 million in salaries between town and school. That includes the impact of all collective bargaining agreements that expire effectively on June 30th of 2026, but that does take into account all collective bargaining changes. I know this kind of always catches a little bit of people by a little bit of surprise, but we're projecting right now $24 million in operating expenses. That is because we have backed out all one-time expenses that are typically funded by free cash to get the baseline for this upcoming fiscal year. Medical insurance, we're projecting just under $19.1 million. We have, in discussion with our health insurance consultants, we're projecting about a 6.5% rate increase. We're fortunate the plan has typically been trending a little bit better than medical rate inflation, so that's a very positive trend for us. The total general and other insurances, which include our liability, our property, we're projecting a $5.4 million expenditure in that line, primarily driven by about a 15% increase potential in property insurance. We continue to explore different options. We thought we may have had a pretty good option this year that would have saved us a substantial amount of money, but at the last minute, some things changed in how the carrier wanted to structure it, and it really didn't make sense to switch. So we're continuing to work on that as we go forward. Retirement, $7.6 million, which is about an 8.5% increase over the actual amount in the assessment from last year. And then debt service principal interest, $14.6 million. That includes the debt exclusions that we raise in the tax rate and then anything that we financed within Proposition 2.5. Total general fund operating expenses, $139,542,000. The next page, please. Thank you. So the next page takes us through other articles, special fund transfers, includes the county projected at $237,000, special human services allocation $650,000. I do not believe that we will continue to have the $175,000 for the special purpose stabilization fund, so we have not included that for this year, pending a review of where it ended on June 30th and what we think it'll have to allocate through CRC potentially. The reserve fund, $500,000, which is consistent with prior years. Other post-employment benefits, we're back to the $500,000 for raise and appropriate. We did ultimately appropriate an additional $500,000 from free cash, since free cash was at $22 million last year. At this point, since we're still going through the projections for free cash, we are not including any projections or recommendations for stabilization fund or capital project stabilization. That will come once we have free cash certified. Hopefully the middle of October is what we're on track for. Total school and minimum capital funding requirement is $1.8 million. Just as a reminder, this is a 1% of the prior year's local estimated receipts and real and personal property tax collections. The enterprise fund transfers to Island Home, $5.5 million, transfer to solid waste, $11.8 million, and then transfer to the newly created stormwater enterprise, $525,000. All told, $21,620,000 there. Other statutory expenditures, which are cherry sheet offsets, of which in Nantucket, the largest cherry sheet offset that we have is for NRTA. for fiscal '25. Total general fund expenses preliminary, $162,430,000, which if we ended or started today would leave us with a deficit of $3,111,000. Again, I want to caution everybody, this is very preliminary, and by the presentation in the budget, we will have been able to close this deficit and then continue to try to fund the select board and town administration's priorities for the departments. It generally starts this way because we don't have a lot of information 2.5 months into the fiscal year that we're in to be able to project better for next year. But I'm confident as I stand here before you today, much like every other year, that we will be able to close that deficit. We've already talked about some of those strategies to work on that. And once September 30th, this quarter closes, we'll have a little bit better of an idea of where we think this year's revenue will end based on some of those larger receipts, as I mentioned. Next page, Erica, please. Thank you. So as we do for revenue, we do the same thing on expenditures, just tracks the last 4 years of actuals or 5 years, excuse me, and what those growth rates have been in those categories. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is where I will turn this back over to the town manager.
Thanks very much, Brian. So we have some to be determined items here, and some of them are just, things we just don't know yet, and we don't know at this time annually. So just to quickly go through them, the select board's priorities. We may have potential revisions to your strategic plan following your retreat on the plan in October. And there may be some new priorities, just don't know yet. We have some town administration priorities. Some are new, most are continuing. They're all listed out there. We've got a lot of priorities to focus on, obviously. Citizen warrant articles, as you all know, often a citizen warrant article is submitted that involves funding, and we have never, in my recollection anyway, funded any citizen warrant article in the budget, or very rarely. School priorities, there are probably going to be some school priorities that they will be seeking to fund, so we will be finding out what those are. Free cash. We expect to submit our free cash certification documents to the Department of Revenue mid-October, and hopefully it'll get certified very shortly thereafter, and we'll have a number pretty quickly. Local receipts, we don't have first quarter quite yet, but obviously we'll be looking at those numbers as they come in subsequent quarters. Health insurance, we're always looking at health insurance numbers and determining, how reimbursement levels and utilization levels and things of that nature. The right whale vessel strike reduction rule, hopefully we can write this off and not have to worry about it at all, but you never know. And we are working very hard with our state and federal representatives and officials to ensure that Nantucket is exempt from the rule, but obviously it's a pretty big unknown right now. Local aid is not set yet from the state. Hopefully it's generally roughly the same for Nantucket. We don't usually have a big increase or a big decrease. NRTA service changes. So we don't know what there might be yet. Hopefully we won't have too much, especially with the free service. We haven't been getting revenue in, of course, but the state has been covering that. So, and hopefully that will continue going forward. And at some point, I'm sure that the administrator is looking at service changes of various kinds. Hopefully some of what we've been talking about for a few years now. I think we see a lot of empty buses at night in the wintertime, and maybe a way to reduce that. I know it's something he's definitely on his radar to look at. PFAS, again, we had a very informative forum last night, an informational session with the Department of Environmental Protection, and they mentioned that there could be somewhere on the island, maybe more than one place, where the town would be found responsible for well contamination of PFAS, and there would need to be a cleanup of it. We do not know what that might be. I think we've seen from our experience with the airport situation that it could get costly. So obviously that is unknown right now. Potential.
Just on that real
Sure.
quickly, but I think that was interesting because just like Jeff was saying, it felt like there were people on the town side, sort of Aisha and other people from the town that seemed to have a better handle on it than some of the state people had. And people were asking direct questions and we were getting, well, the state law is this. And the question wasn't really that, it was slightly different. So I felt, I think, I'm not saying they're not incompetent because they definitely are. But my point was, I think that we have an understanding here that I think surprised them on this whole issue. And it was kind of evident, sort of the level of the questions and the discussion, so.
Sure, thank you. And
Yeah.
we've devoted quite a lot of staff time to it. And we know that outside groups have as well and have provided us a lot of valuable information too. So thank you to them. Potential fee adjustments. This is something that Matt Fee brings up annually, and the finance director has given me a list that I have not been able to get to yet of all of our fees, what the statutory limits are, and what we might be able to, what sorts of revenue increases might, what revenue we might be able to increase by if we were to raise them. And I know one of the thoughts has been to raise it by the CPI or cost of living adjustment or something like that, just annually and automatically. So that will be coming to you hopefully fairly soon.
A good example of that was the sewer fees. When we raised them, initially it was, I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, but it was $500 or $1,000. And then they sat at that number for 20 years. And so then when we started talking about charging, more, everyone was up in arms. And when I went and looked at what the cost of money had been if we had gone there, we were gonna charge, I think, $5,000. And the cost of money if we had just done cost of living, it would have been $7,000 already. And so people, so we were slowly, by not increasing it by cost of living, we were slowly getting behind every year. And so if we could find a way to put, cost of living on a lot of this, get a fair cost now, and then have it go like that, we would be assisting the taxpayers substantially, and we wouldn't be in that situation where we had, fees out of whack. So I hope that we can find a way to do that. I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah, that is a very excellent point. Some of them are statutorily set, like I said, and we won't be able to do that, but others, like the sewer fees, we could certainly do that. Competing capital priorities. This is as you know, when we, about a year ago, gave you our large capital projects, our collision presentation of these big projects that are coming up within close proximity to each other. We are looking at how to level out that impact to the taxpayer and where debt is retiring and where we can add it so it's not a big increase, it's just keeps going. That's not totally easy because we have a lot of big projects and not a ton of debt retiring, I don't think, but I know that Brian's been talking with our financial advisor about that and sort of plugging in these projects to see what it looks like. So we'll probably have something for you on that within the next couple of months as we're looking at fiscal 26 capital projects. Paid family and medical leave, it came up in public comment, and I think we'll probably give you all an update on this. Our position is that this requires bargaining. It isn't something that's been automatic. It was sort of represented at town meeting that it was automatic, and it's been represented that way on an ongoing basis. But the legal advice we're getting is not quite that. But we will give you all a more thorough update as we develop it. Continued review of collective bargaining agreement and non-union compensation impact. As you know, we had quite a lot of market and competitive pay adjustments across the board throughout the entire town in the past couple of years, and that is impacting the budget. We said all along it was going to, and I mean, there's no reason to think it wouldn't. So we're keeping an eye on that and ensuring that we keep determining how to move all of that forward, because we still need to be competitive and make sure we're paying our people market.
And that's one of the reasons that the statutory limits on some of this can go up because these things are going up. So if it's
Yeah,
tied to the
that's-
cost, the cost is going up, we can increase some of these things.
Yep, yep,
So
very good point.
I'm just putting a little dig
Yeah.
in for it.
Thank you, Matt. The Vineyard Wind Farm blade failure, you know, we don't know exactly what that is. We're working on collecting the town's costs, that cleanup costs and things like that. I think there are some immeasurable costs, like the time that the chair spent on this and other staff people. Maybe we can work that in. But I think we know that we're working on settlement discussions and things like that to try to recover as much as possible, and that's underway. So those are some things to be determined and yet discuss a little further with the board as we proceed with our budget development process, where the budgets are out for departments to start putting into OpenGov, which is our budget software. And I think we're scheduled to present to you all beginning of December. And we're happy to take any questions if you have any at this point.
Brian, Libby, thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful. It's really good to get a big overview like that, especially on a night when we don't have to decide anything necessarily, just kind of take it all in. And my one question would be, I know we're going to have the community impact fee from STRs come online eventually. Is there any thought on how to, whatever revenue that brings in, to where to plug that in? Or is it that's kind of too early?
I think it's too early to try to do that, and I think a large majority of it was pledged to either one, I think, affordable housing or to sewer and water infrastructure. So I don't think the net result to the general fund is going to be a substantial increase from what would go there versus to where it is required to go. So we haven't, and due to the timing and going into effect for leases on or after October 1st, I don't think that there's a real way to really project with any degree of certainty that I would feel confident in including in the budget this year. And I think DOR probably would advise me to wait for a year to see what that looked like before trying to do that. So we have not made any provisions for that.
Brian, remind me, is it the date of the execution of the lease or the date of the rental? Has that been, I can see your face. No,
I'm
no
going to
one's
defer
figured it out.
to John Giorgio, who is online,
It's
because
okay.
I don't want to make, this
It's-
has come up and we are researching it and
Yeah.
trying to prepare to get something out to everybody. So if John's comfortable in answering it, I will defer to him.
John?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Brooke, I believe that it will apply to any rental contract that is executed after October 1st. It's not necessarily the actual rental period. I believe it's keyed to the when the rental contract was signed. But I will double check on that to make sure. But that is my understanding.
Okay.
I would also, Brooke, say that without doing anything, the town is required to set aside a minimum of 35% of any community impact fee revenue, and that can only be expended on either affordable housing or infrastructure. So that would be sewer and water and the like. So that money, the 35, at least the 35%, will go into what's known as a receipts reserve for appropriation account. And it will still require appropriation by town meeting, but it's limited to either affordable housing or infrastructure. Now, the other option the town would have is to dedicate all or a portion of that, the community impact fee revenue, to a special purpose stabilization fund. And again, that could be as high as 100% of the revenue, but that would also be appropriated by town meeting, but it could be for things other than affordable housing and infrastructure.
Okay, so I think what I would want to know is what is the process by which we decide what to do with the other 65%? And just have that decision-making process, if it's at our level or if it's a warrant article, just make sure we're prepared for that for town meeting.
Brooke, if I may, I want to double check the statute because I believe that you can dedicate up to 100% of the revenue to a special purpose stabilization fund for any purpose that you designate. It's only if you don't have a dedication of that sort that you're required to spend the minimum 35%. But I have to go back and double check to make sure of that.
Okay. I'd love to, like, just a summary of our options for that would be great. Thanks for bringing it up, Tom.
Believe when we adopted the community impact fee that we actually, I have to go back and look, but I believe we also adopted a percentage that was allocated. I believe it was going to affordable housing, but I have to confirm and get back to the board on that.
Okay, great. All right, thanks.
And just real quick, I think what Brian is doing is smart. I think being conservative with this is the way to do it. And I think things are not going to go straight up like they've been doing for a number of years. And the more that we can, have stabilization funds and have money for a rainy day, the more we're going to be able to smooth out some of the huge expenses we have upcoming. So I hope that we are not, that staff and us are not, thinking that, oh, there's all this extra money, let's spend it. I think that I think he's taking a conservative approach, and I hope we support that.
Thanks, Matt. Libby, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we are getting some calls about this. And if you will recall a little bit, and now I'm thinking maybe we should do a little update about it at your next meeting. This was approved at the November 23rd special town meeting, and there was a lot of concern right after that about when it would start, and there was a state mandated start date that was coming very soon, like within the next 3 or 4 months following the November special. And the board instructed us not to notify the state until a little bit later so that there would be some time for adjustment. And so it's all coming back when we start talking about it. But I think it's 3%, Brian, the fee.
Correct.
And I think that ultimately the total amount of revenue expected to be generated from this was not a lot of money, maybe less than $500,000, something like that. But why don't we kind of regroup on this and give you more of a little update at your next meeting so that we can all be sure some of what you're all saying. But if people have questions about how it's supposed to be implemented, we have been referring them to the Department of Revenue because that is the state agency that is actually implementing the fee. We did have one person say, well, they referred me back to you. So we were going to, I think, try to get in touch with DOR to clarify who people should be specifically talking to about this.
All right, great.
I wanted to just mention one last thing under town manager report. I keep forgetting to do this at the meetings, but next week, some of the items upcoming at your meeting for September 18th include an update on the Wait Drive employee dorm project that's very close to starting, a DPW facility update, Vineyard Wind updates, and the H2C operational review. If you recall, last winter, you had a review of it, but I think it was not quite complete, and we sent it back for more work, and that's going to come back to you next week.
Okay, great. All right, we good on that? So next up is town meeting and annual town election potential dates and scheduling.
So this has changed a bit. And I just want to kind of go over what is taken into consideration when we're trying to come up with some dates for the annual town meeting and election. Obviously, the availability of key officials like town council and the moderator and people like that, e-voting and making sure that our e-voting vendor is available, the days of the week, school concerns, whether there's holiday or other events coming up, and any other concurrent town activities. So you'll see a big X through dates in April, because we had some issues with a couple of very large capital projects that are simply not going to be able to be bid out in accordance with state procurement and other requirements in order to have a number for town meeting. So April really just unfortunately does not work. So we've come up with the following: Saturday, May 3rd, Monday, May 5th, Saturday, May 10th, Monday, May 12th. I mean, these are just obviously recommendations based on sort of historical times. Once you've picked a date, the timeline will follow. And with regard to the annual town election, we can sort of skip the first couple of dates because those are in April. I forgot to take those off. If we were to schedule the annual town meeting on May 3rd or 5th, the election could be on Tuesday, May 20th. If May 10th or 12th, Tuesday, May 27th. There was a non-binding article passed at the 2022 annual town meeting that requests that the select board allow at least 14 days between the annual town meeting and the annual town election. It's non-binding, but again, we try to typically do that anyway, and these dates would meet that request. And then just some other dates of between now and then and a little after of school vacation week and other holidays. And then just for your knowledge, what the recent dates were from 2021 of annual town meeting.
Thoughts from the board? Are you looking for direction tonight on a
Yeah, I
date?
think we really want to get the
Okay.
date set because we need to get going with letting people know when the citizen warrant article schedule is and getting the town council review of that, and lots of other things need to be reserved and scheduled.
Tom?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and since April is out, and as long as it's good with all the parties that Libby mentioned before, the earliest date in May on a Saturday seems like the best one to me. I think that also puts the election on thereabouts where it's been the last bunch of years. I mean, it does, as it says on the bottom of the document here. So that would be my inclination. And I know I asked Libby this week, but for other members of the board who may probably know, or members of the public, we would not go Sunday. If we were to go more than one day, it would carry over to Monday. Is that right, Libby? Yes, okay. So I just kind of kick off the discussion with Saturday, May 3rd as a thought.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess it's, there's always issues. I worry a little bit more that Saturdays, once we get into May, everybody's working on a Saturday. So I was kind of thinking May 5th. I think we should definitely stay away from May 10th because it's the day before Mother's Day and a lot of people travel on that weekend. And May 12th does seem a little late with bumping the election to after Memorial Day weekend.
Erica, can you scroll down to the
But
list of?
it's, never
when-
perfect, whether
when
it's at
we've
night or what on a Saturday.
Yeah, I like early in May. I like May 5th. I like Monday, Tuesday in May, if that's possible.
My understanding is we've generally alternated between the weeknight, weekend thing to make it available to different constituencies. I'm not wedded to that, but I just wanted to make that point. And that time of year, people are working till dark, a lot of folks in the trade, so, and working Saturdays. Definitely the earliest date, so really it's about, do we do Saturday or we do Monday? Is kind of the 3rd or the 5th. I've heard Don say weekday.
Well, Madam Chair,
Malcolm?
I like Saturdays. And no day is perfect because of working and family and babysitting, et cetera, but you can go a lot longer if you start a lot earlier, I think. But I will go with the board.
Yeah, I worry about Saturdays because of kids' sports also being a real conflict for families. There's no good time, but that's been another thing I've heard from people is the coaches and the parents needing to take their kids to games and off-island games puts them off-island versus a weeknight. So I think I'm leaning toward the weeknight.
If I might just add, there is a problem with every day.
Yeah.
Always. And in particular with the school, I mean, obviously we have it when the board sets it, but it is, and I'm not really necessarily advocating for this or not advocating for it, but one setup, one day is a lot easier for the school with events at the school rather than multiple evenings. It's just an interference and disruption in their operation, which
So that argues for Saturday.
well, it does argue for Saturday, yes, but I mean, we'll obviously, again, it is what it is.
Done?
I mean, I love Saturdays when we finish in one day, but if it's anything like this year, it would have gone to Monday, and then that kind of, that goes away.
Yeah, right.
Madam Chair, I think Saturdays, it's a lot easier to come and go, various people, because it goes essentially all day. I suppose when we start it in the evening, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we're kind of, people are hanging in a little bit, and you get about 200 people in the audience. I think Saturday, we might actually have more people.
All right, somebody want to make a motion?
Fine, I'll make a motion that it's Saturday, the 3rd.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We've sort of had our discussion already, so ready for a vote?
I'm sorry, and that would be the election on the,
20th.
thank you, yeah.
Yeah, okay. With overflow on Monday, right, would be for, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not against it. I'll vote
Okay,
for it.
so,
I'd rather see Monday.
okay.
I was hoping we'd go Monday. I'm a no.
So we've got 2 yeses.
I'm on the fence right now.
Got to vote.
Where are you?
Not fair.
I'm off the fence, Don.
Okay, I'll be a no then.
I'm going to vote yes. So we're going with Saturday. Okay. No, so that's 3-2 Saturday. Okay, great, we did it. Sorry, anyway, I hate that we disagree on that. Okay, any committee reports?
I don't think we really do.
I know, it's just, we reflect the, no committee reports?
No,
Okay.
I didn't have any meetings for
Yeah, I know.
a
well,
while.
we had meetings, they just weren't. Okay, a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, that's unanimous. Okay, thanks, everybody.